I remember
Whoa, 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 whoa.
when,
I get to say the beginning of the audio of the video first. Then you can talk about that. Good morning. Welcome to Moopsy in the Morning. We're discussing important topics like VHS and DVDs running simultaneously.
yeah. So when
Good morning,
DVDs
fighter.
came out in 95,
Mm-hmm.
every movie that was really here anyway, was released both on DVD and VHS.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, released, yes, but you had to either buy VHS or DVD here, as
Right,
far as I
yeah.
remember. You weren't buying both at the same
It
time.
depends on.
Oh no,
There was
no,
a
never both at the same time. You did have to buy one or the other,
No, no,
but
you could.
both of them were in store simultaneously.
Okay, so I'm
Disney
trying to think
started that early.
back. Yeah, Lion King, things like that. Definitely we were getting on VHS because I'm trying to remember my son watching them. Yeah, he was watching those on VHS when he was a little kid, and that would have been around the time of Lion King.
Well, uh, so they had a thing where you could turn in your old movie
Mm-hmm.
on VHS and get a discount on the DVD.
Good move.
Well, that also had to do that a lot of people who had the old movie of things like when they did the Rescuers, they did it. Do you know what the problem is with the original VHS of the Rescuers?
I've never seen it, so no.
Okay, there's this scene where the bird dives off the building to gain speed to fly off with the mice.
Yeah.
One of the windows of that building has a naughty picture in it. And
feeling
when
it
they
would make it more
discovered that,
visible. Okay.
they obviously wanted a recall, but
Ah,
there were copies out there. So one of the tricks they did was give you a discount if you turned in the old CD
that's a clever
or the old
move.
VHS for the DVD. Because the DVD version was re-edited to have that removed.
Yeah. Fighter. Good morning, fighter. I got lucky with Admiralty and got 30K dill. Lucky so and so. You. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Actual
That
dill
is
or
amazing.
vouchers?
Pardon?
Actual dill or
Well, you
vouchers
could
for dill?
do dill because I mean you get some dill out of it. I don't know that you get 30 dill out of any one
Well,
thing.
30K sounds like
Yeah, no, he says it's
cheap.
actual dill.
I'd have to look into that because I thought it would give vouchers.
No, no, that's the reward.
Yeah,
But I mean, you get dill for doing different projects.
but the reward is 30K dill.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that's what he's talking about. I mean, like patrol unexplored space is 125 dill. Blah 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 blah. Maybe it was cumulative for a full day's worth of stuff. I mean, who knows? But whatever it is, congratulations. Great on getting actual dill.
Yeah, or
Yay, you.
if you're actually hovering over the reward
Hmm.
thingy at the top right,
Yeah, well, that's Musin. He's not saying he got that. He's saying he got 30,000 actual dill.
uh, and what are you getting if you complete that one?
That's a different thing. That is the reward for completing all 10 steps. Maybe
Yeah,
he's
the
talking about
bonus
something else.
tool. Oh,
Maybe it's supposed to be this, but he actually got real dill instead. Because remember in the good old days when it would actually give you real dill?
exactly. That's why I'm like, wait, did
Maybe he
they
got maybe he got
revert
the
something?
improved new reward, and if he did really good for him,
Yeah, I mean that begs the question of are they giving out the
he got it from a
actual bill
single
again?
Admiralty mission.
Hmm.
You are amazing fighter. Congratulations. I don't know what mission that was, but amazing.
That is a lot of deal.
That is a lot of dill. That is,
I don't know what mission that is either.
and that, we all want to do it now.
Can we all get that mission?
I pressed collect reward and I saw a 30k dill pop up in my inventory. Wow. Sweet.
Okay.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.
So if you go, yeah.
It won't tell you which one it is. Unless you happen to see it as you're doing it.
Well, if you go to your resources tab, it does denote the bonus deal
But
thing separately, doesn't it?
yeah, but it won't tell you what it's linked to necessarily. Sometimes it just says you got this.
Yeah, it does depend on if you already had
Yeah.
a bonus pool.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, anyway. Would you guys like to do something? Well, I have Herald ships on this account and Tholian ships, so I got some ships to kill.
I gotta repair hull in space and touch and damage in
Ooh,
space.
I
excitement
had a
city.
bunch of ground stuff, so
Ugh.
I'm like, nope.
Nope, nobody, nope, nope, nope. And for the ground stuff, it's fine if I get damage because I'll set up Pavo Dissension and just run through and do all my ground damage. Because I'm going to do Pavo Dissension anyway. Might as well make it worth my time. Well, Musin's not even in game, so meh. Taz was on with us for a while last night, and then he did something very un-Taz-like. He said he was
Oh.
tired and going to bed.
Oh, that's weird. Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, he did message me
Has
good
sleep?
morning in the game today, but
Well, he's
Cat
probably wrong.
sleeps.
But this is Taz. I mean, so Chris and I were talking about my...
Well, Taz has insomnia.
Yeah, I
So
know.
him being tired and going to sleep is like, wait, what?
No, it's a good thing. It's like my
Did someone
psychotic
drug
need to
him?
go back to work. As opposed to doing the work that I have right in front of me, I have a book to rewrite, which I have not done. And it's like, well, yeah, I need to do that. Why do I have a piece of paper up here? I have no idea. Okay, fine.
Book to
It was from the
rewrite?
Ferengi Alliance Tour of Duty 10 of 10. Okay. So that 10
Yeah.
of 10, okay, that's probably the big reward then, Fighter. It's not from a single mission. But it was real dill and not the dill bonus pool. If that's what happened, good. Excellent. It's not supposed to happen that way, but we take the money and run. Don't let them know.
alright.
So
Yeah, if they like flip that switch back, but then adjust the tooltip, then we're getting dill again.
no, they didn't. But yeah, it's supposed to be the lithium ore bonus pool. But if whatever,
So that
you've got it.
does that does pop a little message about the dilithium ore in the corner above chat.
Right.
So
It was actual dill because I just used some of that dill to buy a fleet console. Fighter,
okay.
amazing. It's not supposed to be that way, or it used to not supposed to be that way, but originally it was that way. So maybe you're the lucky one that it doesn't work on. You know how occasionally people have the bug that nobody else has got.
Oh,
Take it and run. Run Ferengi again until you can get more of that 30,000 sweet, sweet dilithium.
okay. I know of a way that this could have happened, but that would mean that the character was made before the change in the game was made,
No.
and progress
Nope.
on the Ferengi Alliance.
Nope. I am telling you that that's not the case, because I have done that. And nope. As soon as it switched over on that one, I'm just gonna say, let him have it. Let him enjoy that dilithium. Character was made last year, so even better. Yep. Just enjoy it, Fighter. Go buy those consoles quick before they can take them away.
I do know that for your first one, you might actually get real deal,
Nope.
and subsequent ones
Nope.
would be the ore bonus.
Nope. 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 I've made so many tunes that nope. Once they switched it over, all of mine went over. Unless it's again a glitch. So we're just gonna be very quiet about that and cross fingers that he gets more of it.
Be very, very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Quick is watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Too bad though that that doesn't matter anymore. Cryptic can't do anything
Yeah, I
about
know.
it.
It's
And,
it's
and,
a
and we all know Decca does not have their eyes on the community.
no, they really don't, which I find interesting. They do sometimes. If enough people
Mm.
talk up, they do.
The thing is, cryptics showed their noses a little bit more.
Well,
Like, quiet lurker aside, I've not seen a single Deca employee show their faces on a stream yet.
nope, they don't really have a streamer. They have somebody who's been advocating for getting a streamer, but nothing's really
Not
coming out of
not
that.
that. I mean, just a
Hey,
Deca
tell you what.
employee being a guest on your stream.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet either. But there is a time and language issue there. Chris, what would you like to play?
I have no preference, honestly.
I've got Herald ships and I got Tholian ships. You want to go off to Archer with me for a little pew pew? Or would you rather do Gateway or Herald Sphere? I'd rather do Gateway than Herald Sphere.
Yeah, I'd rather do Gateway.
Fine, I'm going to queue us up for Gateway. Don't tell Taz we're doing this.
I'm gonna tell whatever I like. It doesn't concern him. He's not here.
So there, Taz, you're not here. We are queued for this one. Which my lazy butt finally finished Shin Godzilla. The movie?
Shin Godzilla.
Shin Godzilla.
And yeah, movie or like a model kit.
Weeble?
Oh, we will. Yep.
The starship. Oh, the starship. Okay. So I was going to say Shin Godzilla's like old. Well, relatively old. Not like old, but relatively old.
I just saved loadout. Why is there an unsaved changes? Fudge.
Shin Godzilla
All
is
the work
like
that I put into my
real.
ship build with Taz, it didn't save all of the loadout the other night. It had dropped 2/3 of
Yeah.
my traits. And it's just like... So he sent me a picture of his so that I know what to go back to if it happens again. We will see what happens. Who have we got here? We have Tonath, Ratnik, you, me, and Aaron. So I still don't know what the release date for the new season of Strange New Worlds is, but they're already in production for season 4. So at least we
They're
know.
gonna do a season 5.
Well, I know they've got 4 committed to, and they're filming now.
Oh, no, they got 5 committed to, and they're filming the 4th now.
May I join
'Cause,
you after you're out of that TFO? Absolutely, fighter.
Because all the shows that were being done, this is Discovery, Strange New Worlds, and stuff. They were all greenlit basically at the start for 5 seasons each.
Yep.
It had to do with the whole 5-year mission, 5 seasons.
Hey, the Acolyte was greenlit for 2 seasons. Do you see season 2 out there?
That's Disney.
Yeah, but
This
the thing
about
is...
Star Trek.
Yeah,
And if
but
they
remember,
were
Star Trek
stubborn-
has changed ownership.
Yeah, but if they were stubborn enough to do 5 seasons of Discovery, I do not see why they wouldn't do 5 seasons of Strange New World as well.
Different owners. I'm not going to bet on anything until it actually happens with new ownership. I'm hoping that they follow through with it.
Well, I mean, contract stipulations might have them following through on that.
It might.
So, it depends. Did the actors sign on for a 5-season deal? Because then, they have to work that 5th season.
So that's where it gets into kind of interesting stuff. Apparently some of the people from the Acolyte who were told it was going to be a 2-season run, signed on for it, are talking about suing them because they didn't get the 2nd season out of it.
Technically, they shouldn't even have to sue them. It should be in their contract stipulation, pay or play.
Nope. It's usually not the way it goes. It's you're committed if we do it, but if we don't, not our
And
problem.
they have a very bad
Yeah, Disney
agent.
won't allow themselves to be liable for anything. If you want
It's
extra
not that
money
they've
from
got a
them, you
bad
need to sue.
agent. It's just that these are the terms. If you want this job, you will do this.
Okay, but
Disney thinks of it's a whale, and no one else is going to
well,
give an actor that kind of
Yeah.
recognition for going forward, and they think that that should be enough. So they will set up a contract, take it or leave it, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no negotiation on
Yep.
on the
Very
side.
much.
Unless you
um,
are a big name attached, like you have a big name that you carry into the project that gives it visibility, you have not much wiggle room. Not with Disney anyway.
well, I mean, the guy they got playing Spock and the guy they got playing Pike should have like put their foot down and said, "Pay or play contract."
Yeah. No, they weren't
And
those
for the
names
What
first
when
about
it
season,
started.
if they didn't have one
no
already
one knew of
in
Ethan
the
Peck
first
until
season,
Star Trek Strange New World started.
And with respect, Musin, they're not
Discovery.
big names. They are big names only in
no,
Star Trek.
they're not big names, but they're characteristic faces that they
Yeah.
can't just replace.
They can kill them off. They can send them off to do something else. They can write them out of a script. It's only a 10-episode season, and that makes it pretty
True, they
easy to do
can
what they
make
want.
Spock go on a hiatus.
It's an id. Good morning, Ed.
Like, yeah, Spock's taking a season off. This is the season where he goes on a holiday to Earth and meets James T. Kirk.
Yeah, no, Spock's off on Ponfar.
He's
Yeah,
off.
they can say he's on Ponfar or something else.
He's off the Starfleet Academy to see why the Kobayashi Maru test was passed.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of reasons. You could write somebody out if you wanted to. It would be one thing if you're writing out a huge named character, somebody who's really got a name established
They
in.
couldn't write out Anson Mount out of it. That
Oh,
that would be really hard
I-
because he
I
really
just-
got
It would be
himself.
hard. Wouldn't be impossible. That's the
I
problem.
just had the option of like booting Spock off the ship for a whole season.
They
It's
already
just-
have done that with some of the characters in Discovery
Oh,
because there are
re-
no big names in their own right.
remember, in the Kelvin universe, Spock devised the Kobayashi Maru test. So they
Wasn't that in the canon as well?
yeah, no, that's in original canon, I'm not sure he devised the Kobayashi Maru test, but they did do that for the Kelvin universe.
Yes,
And the
but-
funny thing is, that would give Spock a reason to leave the ship, go to Starfleet Academy, and see what's up with the Kobayashi Maru test being passed successfully.
Cliff, there's enough room for you and Fighter to join, so that's absolutely fine. And good morning, Cliff. But my point was, if somebody was playing hardball, they could write you out of a script if they wanted to.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they could. On the other hand,
They could also replace you.
They could, yeah. Wouldn't be the
Yeah.
first time.
the thing is, if I were ever asked for a role, I'm going to have to say pay or play contract.
You're not going to get the contract.
And the,
then.
Yeah.
you're not getting a contract.
Yeah.
Well, seeing as those contracts exist, they do hand them out.
They do, but it's usually,
You have to be like Bill Murray. You're not Bill Murray.
Yeah.
They have to like be adamant about me having the role, regardless of who I am.
yep,
No,
and
that's not how it works.
there's always,
Well,
always another
during
actor
the-
out there.
Yeah.
Well, during your auditions, if you blow them away well enough, they're gonna scratch their heads and be like, maybe we should give him that.
Yes,
Mm.
but
You have
those
to do a really good audition.
Boy, you'd have to
those
be.
those actors tend to have at least something under their belt.
Like, I know I'm not an actor, but
Yeah.
they are, and technically we're talking about them first.
Yeah, I would say that for a startup show like Strange New Worlds, which, let's admit, it's only 20 episodes in. I know they've got more filmed.
Mm.
You've only got people with 20 episodes. They could get lost.
Yeah, but since they were also in a season of Discovery as sort of a spin-off introduction.
It would be advantageous for everybody's side not to write them off, but at the same time, don't play hardball. You might not win. There was a couple of
No, but
shows back in the 70s where the lead actor, actress thought they were all that in a bag of chips and tried to play hardball, and even though they were a main character in the series, lost their
oh
jobs.
yeah, Bewitched. Or was it I
They
Dream of
got rid
Jeannie?
of
Wasn't I
bigger
Dream of Jeannie?
names for less, and I
Yeah.
don't see why would
I-
they
I-
be really
I-
concerned.
I messed that up.
I think
It's
that was
I
part
Dream
of.
of. They replaced the guy on I Dream of Jeannie, right?
No, they didn't.
Or
No,
was it Bewitched?
Bewitched.
Bewitched, they replaced him.
I always get those two messed up.
Oh my god, how?
Have you heard the mashup of those intros?
No.
Then you'll see, if you listen to the mashup of the intros to Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, you'll understand why I'm
Because
like
it's the same
always mixing
composer?
them up in my head.
Okay,
It could
off
be the
topic.
same-
Off topic here. I have a question. Do any of you have a favorite character from Star Trek that, because of lore, fell out of place in the shows, if any such exist in Star Trek? I'm not quite sure what the question is. A favorite
Don't
character from
understand it.
Star Trek that, because of lore, fell out of place in the shows. Can you
But they
clarify?
got rid of because of the story evolved and got
I-
rid of them.
I
Roll
don't
Aaron.
know. She didn't fall out of place in the shows.
Well,
Well-
Roll Aaron kind of like left because of war reasons and stuff.
Don't think those were
Oh,
law reasons. I
felt
think it
out
was
of
behind the
place.
scenes
Okay,
reasons.
sorry. My bad. That was me reading it wrong. It was felt out of place.
Oh, fell out of place.
Oh, plenty. Apollo?
Oh,
Where Gene Roddenberry like literally says there's no such thing as magic and gods, everything is science, and then he brings in Apollo for an episode.
Yeah. And
No,
never
I-
offered an explanation what the hell they were.
yeah, but
Well-
that's not a favorite character. In my opinion, that's not a character. That's a one-off. I'm thinking
Okay.
character.
How about Zeus's daughter in Lower
It's
Decks?
more about a recurring character than a guest star or guest character.
Cliff suggests maybe the Captain's Yeoman, Janice Rand. It's actually
That
interesting.
doesn't feel out of place.
Asher Yar always felt out of place to me.
That's a whole
Well,
different story.
It's because you're not a naval officer. Of course, a yeoman would feel out of place then.
It's just that not necessary on a starship.
Okay, but the yeoman was created because the original ship was very much based on a naval vessel and naval warfare in space. That's why they
Roddenberry.
have a yeoman present and get rid of that later. Because, you know, all she does is carry around the captain's log.
Yeah. And feed some coffee. and stuff
Roddenberry
like that.
actually hated the military theme.
Yeah, but he's still
Yeah.
doing a lot of
Or
his
something
personal
should be said.
background. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. He used military and law enforcement. It's
Well,
gonna bleed
naval
through.
specifically. He was specifically doing the whole Navy thing.
yeah.
Like, that's why there's stuff aboard the Enterprise that belongs on a sailing ship in engineering.
Hang on a sec. Fighter, which tune are you on?
Not that we need to more the Enterprise with like rope, but
Yep. But
Just wanted to make sure.
kind of funny though.
Okay, if there's a character that felt out of place because of lore, possibly. Who
Actually,
was the Dianimal doctor in the second season of TNG?
I have even a better
What's her
response.
name?
You mean the doctor that replaced Beverly?
Yeah, what was her name?
Lasky.
Lasky. She didn't have
She
any
felt
lore to
out of-
back her up.
No.
No.
They just were like,
Okay.
put her in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Pulaski was a researcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had an awful bedside manner.
She was envisioned to be basically a gender swapped
Bones.
Bones, very kind of off the cuff and
A little bit cynical.
cynical, but her character, as we see, she's a researcher. She's used to being in a lab, not dealing with patients.
Yeah, not what you want on it. I mean, you do kind of want it on a starship, but
put
then
her as
She came
but not with the
recommended.
bedside manner.
She came recommended because of her.
They wanted
because
to
of
get
her
rid of her.
skill, not her bedside manner.
They wanted to get rid of her.
Of where?
Wherever her last place was, they were like,
yeah, there's more than a few people who've
wanted to
been
eject her
promoted
through a
and
airlock
switched out of their
and
jobs
then-
because
Now I'm gonna make everybody laugh. Characters that felt out of place because of lore. How about all those rogue Borg that he sent in that one episode
Badum
under his
Tish. Yeah.
control with the thingy under his fingernail? Those Borg felt really out of place,
And because of
and that was
lore.
because of lore.
Yes. Cliff
no.
and Fighter. What do you want to do?
And remember that time when he tried to pretend he was Data?
Mm-hmm.
He felt really out of place then too, and Wesley noticed.
Felt out of place.
Someone else fell out of place. Barclay. He should be in an enclosed facility for mental patients.
No, Barkley had his moments of. I mean, the Nth Degree was a great episode. They should have left that Barkley in there. That was a fun character.
Barclay's lore is actually that he feels out of place.
Well,
That-
then he should be in somewhere else, some other
No,
place.
but this is the thing that he has to overcome to grow as a character in the
He
story,
never does.
is that he himself feels out of place where
Yeah, but he
he's
never
at.
overcomes it. His story is that he constantly runs into trouble and causes more issues on the starship.
Yeah,
He never-
Stop.
He never
Stoppity,
overcomes
stop,
his issues.
stop. Cliff needs to run Kittimer Vortex. Okay, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I know. I'm not gonna let the game interfere with our chatting about stuff. But nonetheless, we're gonna go here. We will.
We will indeed.
I don't want to say that Pulaski's because of lore. Pulaski's because of behind the scenes.
Well, I know why Pulaski's
Well,
there. Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing is, she feels out of
She does feel out of place, yeah.
because they didn't give her background. They didn't give her anything other than
The question was, do we have a favorite character? So far, we're talking about this. We really didn't
yeah.
like.
No. Yeah. Favorite
What
character.
about the place that I'd liked? I didn't think I'd like out of place characters.
By the way, Kittimer Vortex was horribly laggy for the last couple of nights that we've been running. So you may be experiencing severe rubber banding, and it seems to be unique to this mission. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, I mean, I guess Peanut Hamper would qualify
I
for
love Peanut Hamper.
feeling
Yes, he
out
is
of
definitely a
place,
favorite character, even though he's a very minor character.
but also feeling out of place, right? Because Peanut Hamper behaves so oddly for an exocom.
So Cole has brought the Shin Godzilla with us.
Let me think. Really out of place, but a good character. I mean, whenever they took Quark along during the Dominion War on missions, That felt really out of place because of lore.
Trying to
You
think.
know, when they take him along into enemy territory, it's just like, why is Quark on the Defiant?
Well, I feel that way about Neelix half the time. Why is he there?
Oh, well,
Yeah,
Neelix.
but Neelix at least had some sort of lore basis that he knew, like the region of space or something.
Well, he was lying half the time.
Well,
That's the
no,
character he is. Like that's
he
Starfleet.
wasn't.
That's why Starfleet is so gullible, and that's when half the problems occur because
He
they're so
wasn't
gullible.
lying. He was lying after a certain point, because at a certain point he had never ventured beyond there, and it's actually a whole episode dedicated to. Yeah, I don't know what comes next. My usefulness is gone.
You know, he did have an
Not that he
episode
ever.
like that where he was completely feeling useless because the reaching is a region of space he doesn't know.
Yeah, and he tries to get the map and everything, and just
He
causes more trouble
tries to
because he
be
just doesn't want to be honest. Like,
yeah, he wants to be everything's man because he doesn't want to be thrown off the airlock.
Please,
Because he
please,
didn't
can we throw him
understand
out?
that Starfleet.
I love the guy who played the character. The actor is an amazing actor, but oh, why can't they write better stories? Actually, you know what? Chakotay feels out of place because of lore, because of bad writing.
yeah,
Sometimes
no.
he's fine. Sometimes
Oh,
he's
it
just like,
feels out of place because of bad writing.
Couldn't stand Chakotay for 1 minute of the show. I hated his guts. I actually warmed up to him in Prodigy because they completely wrote out of all the fake Indian stuff out of the character.
yeah,
But
that
in
was so
a
awful.
Voyager, I couldn't stand a minute of him. The only time he was fine was one of the beginning episodes when he was trying to talk, tone down Balana's rage. But that's the only moment I was actually fine with him. Because he did seem like a wise guy who knows how to deal with her. But every other minute of the show, whenever Chakotay was in the way, especially when he didn't agree with Janeway, he was standing like in her way. Ugh, every day is hell.
And over to the other side
Oh.
now.
Whenever I was watching Chakotay, I always like thought he had the mumps
Because he mumbles.
because he mumbles and it looks like his glands are swollen in his in the
Ooh.
way he keeps that straight face. You know, like having a mouthful of marbles while you're speaking.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I really felt that that was a thing that annoyed me about Chakotay.
I will say I don't care for Balana much because for the first few seasons she had the emotion of angry. It does make
Yeah,
her a
but-
one-dimensional character.
Yeah, but they gave us some more dimension later on. when
Yeah,
she
later
started
on.
developing a relationship with
Yeah.
Tom Paris. I think
Right,
they
but
just
it-
had a problem with writing like multi-character show.
Yep.
I think if they couldn't focus on one character. I think they had an shortage of good writers. They could write a multi-character show because they constantly they were focusing on just one character and everyone else was just the background in Voyager.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
tough to write
which is
good
a bit
entourage
of a-
stuff.
Yeah, but like with such a big franchise that Star Trek was at the time, with TNG, DS9 already in like its mid-run, they should have put like top-notch writers, not the lowest-notch writers. You know what I mean?
This right actually gets interesting. Some of the best episodes in all of the series were written by people who were not staff writers.
Yeah, that's a problem because the staff writers were just absolutely awful for Voyager.
A lot of Voyager scripts were spec because there were issues. They had a hard time.
Let me write that down. Issues.
Yeah, no, but they had a hard time keeping union writers in the room because of everything they were doing.
Yeah.
Like
That
the
doesn't surprise me.
reskinning the reskinning of Harris from Nicholas Locarno.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. lot of problems around that time with writer unions and stuff. So yeah, it's a fair point.
Like there was a script that was supposed to be between Janeway and Chakotay that didn't get filmed for obvious reasons that they reused for Enterprise.
Which episode is that?
It's the one where he wakes up and he's in a relationship with T'Pol.
Is that the one where he's older?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was actually a good episode.
yeah.
That was.
It was originally written for Janeway and Chakotay, but McGrew was like, "I am not dating him. There is no way there's going to be a romantic relationship between them."
I
We feel the dynamic between Janeway and Chakotay would never make a believable couple.
Yeah.
They,
No.
they
Which
did
is-
right killing the dynamic between Janeway and any potential suitor.
No,
Like,
I think she had a few characters that they met on the way that were very close. But then again, she had to think about the bigger picture and the crew just rather than just herself.
no,
I remember distinctly, there were a few episodes. There was one
No.
with an alien race that was capable of like sending them
does
apart
everybody
and
for convenience forget that Janeway has somebody waiting for her?
No, didn't
What
he?
was a thing until an episode when they actually got in touch
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Earth, and then she found out that her fiance had to move on, and he moved on, and she was heartbroken, and she just had a hard time processing that. The whole thing that was really keeping her go on, and just business as usual was gone, and now there is nothing waiting for her over there. I
His
mean,
name
apart
is
from maybe
Mark?
from the family. It was Mark, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised anybody over at Earth waited for Voyager to come home.
People do
They
that. That's
did.
Oh, I mean, I know the premise of the show was get them home as fast as you can, hopefully not 70 years from now. But the reality of the situation for everybody waiting at home once they know Voyager is that far away is they're going to take 70 years to get back home.
No.
No one thought about that.
It was 74-ish years, but if that was with no stops, that was just full
I'm-
speed ahead,
I'm
100%
throwing
warp.
the 70-year number there because it's approximately that.
Yeah.
If they
But-
find
Yeah,
a
in a
faster
straight line,
way,
if they don't stop
faster.
the highest
Yeah.
possible warp factor
But-
velocity, yeah.
because there is no guarantee of them getting there faster, then you kind of get the problem where everybody at home knows it's going to take 70 years for their loved ones to get back home.
If they're even going to live that long,
Yeah.
and we might become a generational ship.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm not sure how. We don't have any context of how it was treated home, from the perspective of people home, because I don't remember DS9 ever mentioning Voyager again ever, and there were no other shows that were running in the same time in the same era that could have even mentioned Voyager. Which is kind of a shame because it would have been a good tie-in for DS9 to have an episode where they're thinking about, oh, maybe we can
They
find a
could've
wormhole or
had-
something.
They could have had Quark pull out some Lobi crystals on another customer and then have a throwaway line about the time that Tom Paris helped Harry Kim not buy him. You know,
I
that
kinda go
would
to
have been
the-
enough.
But why?
Just
No reason for Quark to do that.
just cause that way you get to mention things as a throwaway line at the bar that has nothing to do with the actual story plot.
For me, that's so not pandering, but down there with. There's how many quadrillion people in the universe?
It's inserting the Easter egg that reminds you, like, oh, Voyager exists,
Yep.
into an episode of DS9.
But would you?
I would have.
Yeah. Unless it's
With
something worth it, I
with
don't think it's worth
DS9
mentioning.
with DS9 dealing with the Dominion War and not knowing that Voyager was on the other side of the galaxy, it would never come up.
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
mm,
had Voyager gone the other way and tried to make its way to the Dominion side of the wormhole,
Mm-hmm.
we could have had a different story.
Yeah. So you would have had to write it a little bit differently to make that tie-in. But
well,
every
that
now and
would have
then,
been great.
watching, I want to say Marvel, but Marvel not so much. But people throw in gratuitous franchise references that just don't really work. Feels
Yeah,
weird.
that's today.
It's
Like
always.
today's day and age, it's like we gotta stuff as many Easter eggs into a thing as possible.
No,
Yeah,
no, you
you
don't.
you can get away with that with like lower decks because
Or
you know
Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool can do it.
or
Lower Decks
yeah,
can pull it off.
yeah. Those hard hitting Easter egg and callbacks are the bread and butter of those shows or those pieces.
Yeah, and back when they did the original Deep Space Nine and
Ooh,
Voyager,
hey, we're getting
they
rated. Avatar of
they
Win is
still
rating
had
us.
moderation.
Hey, Avatar.
Good morning, Avatar. Good morning, party of Avatar. Partying on a Tuesday morning. Hope everybody's doing well. We are discussing the finer points of bad script writing and things that we do and do not like, respectively, while trying to do some pew pew. Minimal amount of pew pew. What shall we do
Hi.
next? Chris, Fighter, we're still here. Apparently, Cliff has left us. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I assume you're off to do bigger and better things today, and I wish you well. Have a glorious day.
Yeah.
I'm on day 2
no
of working out at the gym on a new program, and so far I'm not in agony, so I guess they're not doing the job right.
Right?
Oh no.
I was able to get out of bed without drugs this morning going, no, we're good. We're good. But it's only day 2, so we will see what happens. So what's next?
Oh,
I really have no preference. So do whatever.
I did buy myself a present yesterday.
Oh,
next
was it?
is the
I bought-
guarantee.
I got the
that
15th bundle yesterday.
Next is the guarantee
Oh.
that none of
Oh.
us are the actual target audience for the Star Trek Academy show.
I am.
Actually, according to Jonathan Frakes, we are.
He would be incorrect. I'm probably going to watch it because I like some of the actors and actresses in it.
Because
But-
I feel it's going to be aimed at young adults and teens to get them into Star Trek.
Yeah, that's actually where they need to be going. I wouldn't say teens, but young adults would be probably the group that they want to get into.
Yeah, well, I'd say anywhere from 16 plus.
Yeah.
You know, like get them thinking about it just as they're getting ready to finish high school.
Mm-hmm. But they need to bring in new people to get to keep the franchise going. While again catering to our older people desires, we're already captivated. We're going to stick with it, even if we don't like specific things. We're going to stick with it. But yeah, if you're going to keep a franchise alive, you're going to have to figure out what people want. However, coming of age, academy, that kind of level story never strikes me as anything very interesting because it's been done before, but maybe they're going to do a great job with it. Versus once I got into Lower Decks, that was a great intro because it did give us younger characters still, figuring out their way in life and playing with that, but in active roles on a starship, which I thought was much better once I got into it. And I first admit it took me a while to get there. And thank you, DT and his closed captions.
Well, I still have this great idea for a show.
Mm-hmm.
which is just a group of people that are trying to make it in the quadrant controlled by the mega powers.
Okay.
So they're trying to often cross the neutral zone with goods that are not allowed to be shipped. They don't they don't fall under the protective umbrella of the Federation
Mm-hmm.
and actually would prefer not to be dealing with Federation's personnel scanning their ship and coming aboard
Yeah.
and having them fly in a non-Federation ship.
Okay, but that since Star Trek is very focused on Starfleet and the Federation.
That's just it. In this instance, the Starfleet, the Federation, would be the antagonist to the crew because the crew are
Mm.
like smugglers.
Right. So how does
And
that tell the Star? I'm being
whenever
devil's
you
advocate.
see
How does that tell
Starfleet
the
ship,
Star Trek story?
well, because these people have to live in a society where on one side there's a utopia where you don't use money, but these people don't fall under that umbrella and need some form of
As a
profit
as
to
as an
get by.
experiment, as an experimental filler episode, it would work.
I would base
But
an entire series around it, but
there's
You
not
I
wouldn't
enough
have
have
meat on
a
some
that bone.
ideas.
you wouldn't have a season of that. There's no dynamic that would be interesting for more than one or two episodes out of this.
Oh, I
Maybe in a
mean,
10-episode season, but you would only get one.
Yep, probably.
BT
Eh,
interruption here. Fighter is requesting Royal Flush, so I'm going to queue us up for Royal Flush.
but
Oh dear lord.
Oh, it's not that bad.
basically you get kind of a setup like Firefly out of that, but
Firefly
set in
works
Star.
because they are inherently the good guys.
Well, the crew has to become likable and seen by the audience as the good guys. So, the audience will root for the crew, even though they're not Federation.
Right,
And
but
even though the Federation are like, oh, but that's a no-no in our book.
yeah,
do we
but
the
if you have to, if you're going to have somebody be the protagonist, in this case, your crew of whatever you want
Yeah,
to call them, let's call
well,
them
there's
freighters, then you have to have the antagonist. And if that's going to be the Federation, now you're setting up that dichotomy that really worked badly in
no,
the Acolyte of the
but
Jedi are the bad
Mom,
guys.
Mom, it's not just the Federation. It's also the Romulans. It's also the Klingons. Potentially a run-in with the Orion Syndicate. Gorn space. Like there's so much around the neutral zone borders that could be antagonistic to the crew that doesn't have to be the Federation. But having the Federation also be an antagonist makes it a really like tough life to live
Yeah, very much
outside of
so.
the Federation. And I'd
I'm
love to see
seeing
what it would be like when there's a utopia that you just don't want to be a part of and how you
uh,
survive then in the Star Trek
basically
universe.
I would take what Star Trek originally did with uh what was it Wagon Trail,
Mm-hmm. Wagon train.
uh, Wagon Train, right?
Yeah.
And go with a adaptation of Bonanza.
So the actual premise is, I know it knows, is Gene Roddenberry sold Star Trek to NBC as Wagon Train to the Stars. Uh, the premise being
I
it would be a bunch of standalone series with your core group there, but they would be telling those stories. And in that case, I think it's got a point. You could do that if you had your core base of I don't know what, and then you could tell these individual one-off stories. The people who don't want to be part of the utopia, et
yeah.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are not cute. That's interesting. Let's see what happened.
Well, I mean, there are people like that they run into. So it stands to reason that there would be the
Or
potential for a show in that.
like Bonanza, or like
'Cause you know,
Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
I explain my premise, and immediately everybody's so focused on Starfleet
Yeah, 'cause
as
that's
being
what it's
the thing that,
about.
yeah, it's just that there's other threats like the Romulans and the Klingons. Oh my God.
So then,
Like, then the Federation is the lesser evil to deal with, you
yeah.
know.
So when I do things like that, Musin, it's to try and make you think through it. It's a great standalone
Yeah.
episode. And if you did it as
Well,
a standalone episode and people went, wow, that's really interesting, can we take that into a series? Can we take it into a limited run series, etc., etc.? But it was as the premise for an entire 5-year series. Weebu?
oh, it's also
Yep.
the crew of that ship could do things that a Federation crew would not because they have the Prime Directive and stuff.
Yeah, but let's say we get these people doing their own thing versus the Romulans. The Romulans would not hesitate to, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, but like, remember when Kirk gave the guns to these primitive peoples because he had to deal with the Klingons doing the same?
Yeah.
Like, you could revisit a premise like that, but then have it be, a non-aligned crew that doesn't have such rules holding them back, and seeing how
Your
they deal with such a situation.
your organization with Mariposa that Beverly Crusher and Jack were running for would be a
Mm-hmm.
good basis for a premise like that. Because they technically are Federation citizens who are
Or the Fenris
flying
Rangers.
outside of Federation jurisdiction. They are doing this privately. They are like a private suppliers. They deal with all kinds of people, and they probably dealt with all the sides
Well,
which they ever encountered.
again, trying to make it last through multiple episodes. How do you craft it? I'm playing with
I'll make
ideas
a
here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only real thing is you have to come up with a goal for the crew to work towards to get a long-term series out of that,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't too hard. Like, these people
card,
need to
actually.
have a way of sustaining their living. So probably they have dreams that costs a lot of essentially energy credits or gold pressed platinum in this case because they're outside of the Federation.
I mean, other societies probably have their own currencies.
Well, I'm
I still
assuming
don't.
that
I still
because of
can't see a longer running reason for a show like that.
I could.
I mean, you came up with it. I'm not surprised, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't see what's the griping point for people to actually
well,
pick it up for more than just episode or few, like a limited run series.
What if you were to
The-
take
Because
it
there would have to be like
slightly?
a common rule that you actually sympathize with.
What if you tried
there's
to take it a different way, which would be to think of your core group as being, let's say, Doctors Without Borders or World Kitchen, some charitable group where the Federation, because of reasons, as we discovered in Picard, isn't going to do that stuff anymore. And your people that you're talking about, Musin, were basically helping them out. They were providing supplies, fuel, food, medical
Fenris
equipment.
Rangers.
Yeah, Fenris Rangers / what Beverly was doing. You could make them as the core in this altruistic fight against the Federation, because the Federation's become kind of locked up in its own paperwork and structure and has forgotten what they're actually out there to do.
well,
Becoming very isolationist, right? It would be a good time to set it up like in between first and third season of Picard. Plenty of room.
but there's a lot of space where the Federation just does not guarantee your safety
Right.
when you're there. It's
Yeah, we had them. They're called Maquis, and they weren't very interesting.
yeah.
Well, the
They were
Maquis
cannon
were.
fodder.
Well,
Yeah, you're right. The Maquis are kind of where you are with that one. How do we make that interesting? How do we make them
Yeah, but
survivable?
okay, so the Maquis had enemies on all sides,
Yep.
and they decided themselves to butt heads with the Federation full frontal, right? Like they didn't decide
Son of a gun.
to skip town and run. And the kind of setup that I have, it's like, the Federation's closing in. You know what? We're getting out of here. Like you don't stick around.
Well, hey, so why not write a fanfic about it, Mason?
Yeah, no, I've got plenty in my head. Like I've even already picked the ship that they should be flying. A custom layout interior for Miradorn Raider to be a smuggler ship, because it actually in canon has protection against long range scans so that they can't scan the cargo and stuff. And it's a pretty nimble, cool looking ship. And as like a larger base of operations, a much slower, bigger ship that they can go to in sort of sort of as a mobile home base.
That's interesting. There it is.
Yeah, because the Hushnok ships are just floating around in space after Kevin snapped the species out of existence. So technically anybody could salvage such a craft.
Oh, Cliff, they didn't catch me unaware. They caught me stupid.
And I do really like the non-Federation ship ideas for that, showcasing some of the lesser seen ships.
Hmm.
You know, 'cause
Technically, wasn't the La Serena supposed to be a non-Federation ship?
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
And then
Yeah.
somehow in season 2 of Picard, it is.
Well, they probably incorporated it into Starfleet or something.
We were discussing last night what a great character Rios was. And
Oh, I
he
love Rios.
would have been a fantastic standalone character that you could base a whole bunch of interesting stories out of.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
Hell,
I'm
give
thinking
us,
more or less of a crew than
Give us
single.
a Rios in the World War III.
I
Oh,
just want Rios.
He
I could
probably
do
has
10
seen it.
episodes
if
of
they want
Rios.
dark and gritty, that is exactly what they should do. Rios in World War III. That could actually really work. Also, they had like a golden ticket at the end of Picard season 3. We
Oh.
all cried yes. I still see nothing.
You're not going to either.
Well, that's politics of the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want my Captain 7 of 9.
Yep, we all do.
We all do.
There are thousands of people that do, and
Yep. There's active campaigns to get that going, but right now, Paramount was saying if Section 31 and Starfleet Academy do well, they will think about, well, Section 31 did not do well at all.
No,
Yep.
but
That's-
I'm
Maybe
sorry, but
maybe
Section
they
31 was something that no one ever asked for apart from Michelle Yeoh. So if they put pressure on Legacy, but like put a dependency on Legacy based on Section 31 that again, no one from the fans asked for, then that's on
I,
them. That's not on us, and like we are
actually,
not to
Mom,
blame for his performance.
you bring up a good point. Maybe that is why Section 31 didn't do well. and they made it a botch job on purpose.
You actually might not be too far off there.
Uh,
But
It's
they're
like,
also
then we
hinging
don't
it
have
on
to give the
Academy.
fans what they want.
Again, Academy wasn't something that we requested, so why are they putting that blame on us if it fails?
Well, because they're very
Defending
fascinated with their Discovery
Legacy.
thing,
We
which
asked
is
for Legacy, we got... Sorry, no, we asked for Strange New Worlds, we got Strange New Worlds, it's doing fine. Why not listen to the fans instead of trying to put a dependency on their own internal project that, again, no
Well,
one really asked for?
Remember how much of Star Trek in the movies became we need the pew pew as opposed to, that's not necessarily what Star Trek fans want. They like great characters and good stories, and then you throw in the pew pew as the icing on the cake. It's the great stuff that goes on top of it,
Yeah,
but it's not the fundamental.
somebody at the table always says, but the one that had the pew pew in it is considered the best movie ever.
But the pew pew isn't the focal point of it. Besides, the best one ever would either
Exactly,
be.
but somebody at the table always brings up that the one with the pew pew in it is doing the best. So we have to have pew pew.
Well, that's what happens
That's what
when you look
happened.
at the charts and Excel files, but not exactly about reviews and people's opinion.
With the amount of like data gathering they're doing, and probably the fact that this conversation is logged and stored somewhere, and they have these algorithms to look for keywords. Why this is our conversation does not reach their ears is
It-
beyond
Because they're
me.
not listening to these kinds of conversations.
No, but like
I'm sure there is
listening
no
into
division
us
in
is
Star Trek
so
that actually listens to thousands of streams
No.
out there
well.
for keywords
We're
about ideas brainstorming. We are nothing to them.
Technically, we have rules against it. It's an invasion of privacy, but like,
How is it invasion of privacy? We're on a live stream.
because okay, but technically we are on a live stream, but a conversation like this had in a voice channel on Discord or
Yeah, since I've put it on Discord, it's out there for public consumption, and it goes on to YouTube, so it's out there for public consumption.
Now, if this was a server that we owned and ran every last, bit of it, maybe. But it's a free service.
Yeah.
If you're not paying for it, you are the product.
I'm paying, so I'm
No.
not the product.
Oh, you're the product.
That's what you
And
have to think. You're the product.
Yeah, you're here.
I actually have Nitro, but I enjoy
You
the
do, but-
perks of it.
Server doesn't, so it doesn't matter.
yeah,
But-
But-
Since I spend a lot of time streaming my
that's perfectly fine. But paying for their subscription doesn't keep you from being the product. It just says you get extra stuff.
If this was an official server that's running official Star Trek stuff, then yeah, they would probably have some ears.
But there are so many voices they could listen to, so...
There are so many servers.
Yeah.
There are so many servers dedicated to Star Trek Online, and Star Trek in general, and then all the fan fictions, and like there is not enough processing power and like people who would actually be able to comb through all of the noise that surrounds it.
Well,
And,
even
like,
if you got very specific, and let's do a Snow White comparison, or not Strange New Worlds, Brave New World, the new,
The
Captain America movie. They
Yeah.
made those films, took them to test audiences, and the test audiences went, we don't like that. And they changed it and adapted to try and take into consideration these amounts of feedbacks from limited audiences, and what they came up with were disasters. Getting public opinion and all that isn't necessarily where you want to go. You need to have somebody come in who's got a fairly strong idea, who can support it, back it up, and do the work necessary. That doesn't always happen. Frequently doesn't happen.
The focus groups they put them through were Joe off the street, who probably had only seen one or two movies in the MCU and
you don't really
didn't
know
really
what's
care.
what.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
has never read an actual Marvel comic because they're a DC
Yep.
fan or
But bear in
something.
mind, that's if they're going to survive, they're going to have to get those people in. But this managed to not entertain anybody, either dedicated uh, MCU fans and
Uh,
non-fans. They messed up
Here-
on all accounts, and ditto with Snow White.
Okay,
I haven't
so
gotten around to watching it. I will,
For which
but
one? Brave New World.
yeah,
You're a brave
because
man.
I'm
You are
already
braver
I'm already
than I.
Yep.
I watch Manos for the fun of it.
Manos Hands of Fate.
Yes,
Oh God.
There's that.
I oh. I watch
Okay,
Manos
then,
Hands
that's
of
the
Fate at
question.
least once every other year or so for the
No,
fun of it.
no, I actually
Every-
will not watch that anymore.
Every Christmas I watch the Star Wars holiday special.
That's different. I mean, that's cringe, but it's
it's
different.
got B. Arthur,
It's got B.
period.
Arthur, yes.
B.
Okay,
Arthur
so
is
and it's got Boba Fett.
yep, in his first canonical appearance.
so Chris, Manos: The Hands
Yep.
of Fate is a low-budget movie that was done by the guy who owned a Ford dealership, and he wrote a movie. And a large part of the movie involved him driving a Ford car around, and they wind up going to this. The day runs late, and they didn't get to their hotel, so they just find this place off the road, and they stay there. And it turns out to be run by a bunch of cultists who haven't learned how to act yet, very clearly, with terrible dialogue, a terrible villain, a terrible henchman, actresses playing the, I don't know what you want to call them, henchettes, the cultists. It is the most
I
awful
think-
movie. It's not, it is scary in one sense, but it's just awful. As you would
Okay.
expect from a guy whose main job is to sell cars, but has
You-
decided he can do his own movie.
I really enjoy watching Razor Blade smile when I'm doing a vampire themed watch. Anybody know that one?
No.
I've never heard of it.
Nope.
It is a movie that had a budget of only 20,000 Great British Pounds in 1998.
Ooh.
It is real low budget. And kinda, yeah, it's a cult thing.
I
I
bet.
love rewatching it. It's semi cringe,
Yeah,
but in a good way.
Oh, this is
If
cringe in a
you-
bad way.
yeah, if you ever want to watch Manos: The Hands of Fate, watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version.
There are two, actually, there's MST3K, and then they did a riff tracks of it. And I would say watch the MST3K over the riff tracks. They're both awful. Really awful. But
Good
I
recommendation.
I-
Razor Blade Smile is also really awful with some really interesting camera work for the action scenes and stuff. Very shaky cam.
But if it tells you anything, Quentin Tarantino owns one of the few remaining original film versions of it.
it's awful, Chris. The only reason I would say watch it is just to get an idea of how awful can be. Because it's awful. All right, I'm going to get out of here, everyone, because it's after 7 and I got stuff to do. Stuff to do for the next 60 days, so I'm going to be there. I should be on tonight. We were on last night, surprisingly, because I didn't go to class last night. I'm getting smarter. Don't do everything you have to do for the entire week on one day. You can spread it out over the week. We'll see how that goes. All right, on behalf of everybody here at Moopsy in the Morning, I want to thank everyone who joined us, which would be Chris and Cliff and Fighter and Musin and Id, and thanks to Avatar for the raid. We appreciate it. Everyone have a wonderful day. We'll see you in about 11 hours, and take care. And let's find the button. Where is it here? And stay moopsome.
Moopsy.
Moopsy, Moopsy.
Shun the non-believer. Shun the non-believer. Shun. Shun.
And I will make it a threesome.
Do you even hear
You
yourself?
can hear yourself.